Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Leaders Lab. So happy to welcome you again to this initiative of the Customer Success Network and Emilia. Before I hand you over to her guest, who's incredible today, we have this celebratory episode on Cinco de Mayo, which I know in the States is a big celebration. A couple of housekeeping, items for me. On your screen, just in front of you, you should be able to see our Slido link. This is where you can ask questions. We do want to make sure that towards the end, when we do get to your questions, we are asking the most relevant to you. So do participate. I'll pop the link in the chat in a second as well. If you have the app, the code is below the link as well. So please do get engaged in the discussion. Stay with us until the end. We're going to tell you something exciting about what we're doing next month. Emilia, over to you.
Thank you so much, Marika. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is our fourth of 6 sessions that we're doing over the period of 6 months. And I am so excited to have Chris Doell here. He is the Chief Customer Officer of AuditBoard. And I know that as a customer success consultant, a full-time consultant, I get a lot of reach outs through LinkedIn, email, Twitter, asking me for advice and support on, great, I've been promoted to a leadership level, but now what do I do? And so Chris has been an incredible leader at Cisco, now at AuditBoard. And I thought, what a great person to bring to discuss what do you do in your first 100 days as a leader, whether it's management, director, VP, SVP, or Chief Customer Officer. There are many commonalities. And so that's what we'll talk about today. So thanks for joining us, Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation. Pleasure to see everybody, although I can't see you. But certainly happy to be here and share any experiences that might be helpful in some small way.
Well, let's get started. First of all, tell us a little bit more about you and AuditBoard. What is it?
Okay, sure. So I'm Chris Doell. Hi, everybody. New Chief Customer Officer at AuditBoard. I've been with AuditBoard since the start of the year. So, about 100 days in, ironically, and really, really and truly enjoying it. AuditBoard is a management platform for managing risk. So whether you're an auditor or a risk officer or a compliance officer, we just make the world better for folks that really want to manage the workflow and the process of managing risk. So that's what we do. And I am certainly very, very thrilled to share my experiences. I inherited a pretty fantastic team, a sizable operation, about 100 folks or so. And, we're on a it's a very fast moving, fast growing SaaS business. So, figuring out how to evolve and the mousetrap and build the better mousetrap for scale and agility, that's really been the task at hand. And so, I'm happy to share, experiences around that.
All right. Well, great. Well, before we dive into to more tactical stuff, I want to know, what did you learn during COVID that you may not have taken up before this pandemic that is hopefully over soon?
Yeah, indeed. So one of the things that, like so many of us, we're at home, we're homebound a lot more than we really ever have been. I'm used to traveling the globe 30-40% of the time. So being home, you just see a lot of things that you want to improve around the house. And one of the things that I wanted to build was a deck off of my kitchen. And except that the deck is like 8 feet off the ground. And so I thought, before I just sort of pick up a hammer and some lumber and do that, maybe I should practice first. And so I built a play platform. We have some woods behind the house, and I built a play platform for the kids to play on because, all the playgrounds were closed. And so I got my hands dirty and, built this wonderful play platform, and it's strong, it's sturdy, it's safe, it's great. But what I realized was, I might have skills to build that, but I'm not sure I want to put all of my family and friends and loved ones, 10 feet over the air on something that I built. So I hired a professional. So man's got to know his
That's great. Okay, well, good. I like that. So let's dive in, especially given we have about 24 minutes left, and I'm hoping the audience has lots of great questions for you too. But my very first one I'd love to ask is, what are the common mistakes people make in their first 100 days? And maybe you can share one that you've made either in the past or in these 100 days.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I don't know if it's common mistakes or just maybe good common sense, but, clearly, a CEO is going to be hiring a CCO for some reason. Like there's some catalyst, there's some compelling event that needs to be addressed. And, I think when you come in as the new leader of a CS org, it's real easy to bring your fresh set of eyes and ears and all the experiences from your past and bring those forward. And you just see low hanging fruit here and there and all these little tweaks that you can make to really improve the operation. I think I'm a big gratitude guy, and appreciation goes an awful long way. And I think one of the, common missteps is, you tend to focus on all the things that we can improve without fully appreciating and addressing everything and all of the great people and all of the great work that got you to where you are today. I mean, just because what got us to where we are today won't get us to where we're going tomorrow doesn't mean we shouldn't truly appreciate, acknowledge, and celebrate all of those incredible accomplishments. I mean, I feel super blessed to inherit an amazing organization, an amazing process. Can we make it better? Of course, but I don't want to dive headfirst into let's do this, that, and the other thing without fully appreciating everything that got us to where we are today. So take the extra time to appreciate kind of what led to this incredible opportunity that you're now grabbing the reins of. That would be really my one piece of advice.
I love that. And I will tell you, I've been a VP in an organization for the past 3 months. I just hired my replacement, and because that's what you do as consultants. And what I have been doing up until this point is every Friday sending the team a gratitude email of what went well. I always include a picture and a quote. And the one Friday I didn't send it, I got all these emails on Saturday morning. Where's the email? And I had purposely held back because I wanted it to come out Monday morning to make an announcement. Mm-hmm. But they were just so looking forward to that email every Friday to give them a boost, and it made them feel well. I was giving them thanks for all the work they've done. And so I love this quote or tip that you've given us. Thank you. Yeah, all right. Sure. So let's the next question, I think it's about people. When I think about transformation, starting something new, I try to create this triangle of people, process, systems. So when it comes to people in your first 100 days, what would you think about when it comes to hiring? What are those critical hires you make? Yeah.
So again, I think there's a natural tendency to kind of look at the line functions and the core competencies of people in line and understand, hey, do I have the right support people in place? Do I have the right renewals people in place? Do I have the right, PS and implementation folks in place and so forth? And I think that's where we naturally get drawn to, because that's the line. And you've got to take a look at that most certainly. But I think once you get past that and get to, the nuances that will help with growth and scalability and efficiency and so forth, it's some of these other, lesser known, lesser popular functions like CS ops. Like how is your ops team helping you? How are the trains running on time? How are we removing administrative burden for metrics, measurement, survey systems, and so forth off of those line managers who have tough jobs managing the line and their work remit as well, and arguably those customer escalations and so forth. So how can we ensure that ops team and that ops function is serving all of the line managers, all of the line functions? That's one. I'm a big believer in learning and development. So my mother was a career educator. Mother-in-law is a career educator. I mean, this sort of runs in my DNA and blood. But I also know, having come from Cisco, where we had massive book of business, 27,000 customers, every country on the globe, what I know deep in my heart is that if you don't have solid content, value-added content that you can drive through these drip, nurture, and digital campaigns and tech touch methods, you're sunk. You can't. You have to have strong content if you want to be efficient and continue to drive value with customers. So that L&D function is in a lot of organizations, it's under-resourced and frankly underappreciated. I literally came into AuditBoard and tripled the size of that team instantly, because the folks that were there were doing great work, and we need more of it because we're on a rocket ship. We need a lot of content that help customers self-serve. So that's the other function I think you need to look kind of closely at. The third is, again, probably even more nuanced than that. What's the analytics acumen within your organization? Is the business, do we make data-driven decisions? Are we using analytics to understand what the customer usage patterns are? Are we affecting the digital and tech touch campaigns with that analytics? Some businesses do it well, some do it not so well, some don't do it at all. I submit that's an important one if you want to get to growth and scale quickly. And then I guess the last thing I'll mention, it's kind of akin to your gratitude emails, Emilia. In this pandemic world, like, I started at a business, I interviewed, recruited, and started. I've never met one person. And that's a lot of us, who are taking new jobs now. We've never met the people we work with in person. So thinking about how you're going to capture the hearts and minds of your team from the human perspective and is really, really important. I kicked off every week. I just do a video. I literally drive around town. I find some unique historical aspect around town, and then I'll do a 3 to 4 minute video just saying, hey, this is where I am and this is the history. And oh, by the way, here's what I'm seeing in the business this week. And, I try to do that every week, and folks like it. They haven't complained when I don't do it yet. I'm not sure I should do that yet, but but those are a few things that I would look at from a starting point. Does that make sense?
It really does. And I will be honest, I believe CS operations and enablement, these two roles, very different, are really the key to success. They're the people who can bring you data and to help that tech touch strategy that you're referring to. The CSMs that aren't well equipped with knowledge of the industry, collateral to share with clients for engagement, those are the ones that are suffering the most, and they're often afraid to tell their leadership. So if you're able to anticipate their needs, that's incredible.
Yeah, if you're a leader and you're asking your CSMs to check in on your accounts without value-added information, you're doing it wrong. You got to rethink, because talking about sports and the weather gets you about 10 seconds into the conversation. Yeah, I just make a mantra. I tell my teams, don't talk to a customer, don't reach out to a customer unless you're adding value to their day in some way. Make them want to open your email, make them want to answer your call and jump on your Zoom or your WebEx, because it's all about the value you bring them. So I wholeheartedly agree with you, Emilia.
Love that. So processes, that's the next piece in the triangle of people, process, systems. What processes have you implemented in these past 100 days that you would like to tell others to consider as they're going through theirs?
Sure. So, there's a couple of themes under process, but it all starts with painting the picture, painting the theme, painting the vision. Again, if you don't grab the hearts and minds of folks about what the North Star is you're marching towards, it doesn't matter. So, painting a picture of what we're trying to achieve and that sort of better mousetrap that we're trying to build, that's really important. And what generally falls out of that is two things. One is we have some new initiatives, some new focused work streams that we need to do. At AuditBoard, I realized that I had quite a few initiatives that I wanted to put on the table. So within the first, I want to say 50 or 60 days or so, we put in, I launched the top 10 CAS initiatives, and we had an all hands. We talked about, hey, here's top 10 things that we may have touched on briefly in the past, but we're going to double down on. We're making budget bets, we're making focus bets, and these are the top 10 that I want have owners for and get people aligned around, and let's start making progress against. Forewarning, my top 10 escalated into 15 within about 30 days. So be careful you don't bite off too much more than you could chew, because I got super busy when I realized there was 5 other things that I really wanted to get done too. So it turned into 15 very rapidly. But understanding what are the are your focused bets for your time, your budget, your mental calories? That's important. And then inevitably, what falls out of that is how you're going to measure the business. So whether the measurements are in place are on point today, or whether you need to modify them, really understanding how are we going to measure these initiatives, but more importantly, how do we measure the health, the happiness, the time to value, and of course, our retention, both gross and net for the business. And I would submit, if your formulas for GRR and NRR aren't perfectly aligned with finance, then spend some time with your CFO and get that dialed in. You don't want to have a decoder ring at every QBR trying to figure out why your numbers don't match finances. Just go with the same formula. It's better to be consistent than to be right in that scenario. So that's what I would suggest. Figure out what your initiatives are and make sure that your measurements are on point. Those are the processes I would focus on right out of the gate, because ultimately, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it.
Yes, when I was chief customer officer, I spent at least an hour every week with the CFO and her team, going through the numbers and really understanding how they were looking at the data, what they were going to present to the board. I just think it's so critical to have everyone aligned around the numbers. And I don't believe enough leaders do that. Just really become good friends with your CFO. That's great advice.
That's just smart business. Stay close to the purse strings. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, the next question, I really want to pivot a little bit, because I think this is important as we enter this new era of post-pandemic, or at least in California, where we have a huge majority of the population vaccinated. Our infection rate is hovering at around 1%. So I'm really thankful about that. And so a lot of people are wondering, this new world, how have you created, leading up to now, this safety, this place during the pandemic where there's sanity? First of all, we're working probably more hours than we ever have. And then, hey, we've got a new leader. He's going to be turning around every rock. How have you created your health, your sanity and safety for your employees?
Yeah, great question. And I really appreciate you asking that one too. It starts with your fundamental philosophy. I truly believe people are working very, very hard, and it's a stressful time. We have to acknowledge, and not just sort of on the side, or in a platitude way. I mean, we directly acknowledge this is hard. This is a hard way to work, where you don't meet people, you don't have a chance to have lunch with folks or high five them. Where life and work is so blurry that it's really, really challenging. So, there's a couple of things. One, we addressed wellness pretty head on. Like my last all hands meeting, we spent a full third of the time talking about wellness and how are you taking care of yourself and how are you checking in on your coworkers. And it is okay to elevate and send a flare up through management that I'm struggling, I need help, I need assist. Make sure your folks are taking breaks and taking walks and taking lunch and signing off at a reasonable hour. Like, it's important to, I think, not just say that's a nice thing to do. No, I really, really want folks to do it. And so that's one. Another thing just that's kind of fun, and Emilia, you'll appreciate this because our dear friend Nick Maida from Gainsight implemented this. We all live on Zoom, and life can coexist with work, but to continue to try to pretend like we can separate them is just nonsense. It's sheer nonsense. So look, pets are going to get involved. Gardeners are going to, have blowers in the background. Kids are going to walk in. You need your walks. You need your dinners. Deliveries are going to ring the doorbell, and you're going to have to jump and do it. Contractors are going to be banging in, next door. Like, we are in a place now where we really should make it okay for life to inject. And the thing I love about Nick, there's many things I love about Nick, but he implemented, when pandemic hit, he implemented this policy, corporate policy, that said you are not allowed to say I'm sorry on a Zoom. If something happens, that real life injects, it's a corporate policy. Can't say you're sorry. And I love that. I absolutely love it. I've really tried to adopt that with a lot of my teams as well. You know, your cat jumps in front of you, or your kid interrupts you. It's okay. This is a weird way that we're working. And I think it is creating a bit of a new as we come into 2021 and move forward. So it's important for us all to adapt and acknowledge that life must coexist. Personal life must coexist with work, and we need to make it okay. As leaders, we need to make it okay for that to happen.
I really want to just echo that and say, people like David Sakamoto, our friend, he's at GitLab. You can see him on meetings with his baseball hat, his 2 young twins in the meetings, and it shows his vulnerability. Same with Nick. I'll give that example as well. We do walk and talks. He'll call me. We'll both be walking. We'll both be in our sweats. I even tweeted a picture yesterday with one of my friends in Paris, Sue. I had my hair up, was going for a walk with my daughter. It's the only time I can see her and exercise. But I was having a meeting with Sue in Paris, and it was just so nice to be able to show myself as being vulnerable. And that is, as a leader, you need to show your team that you're human as well, and that you're taking care of your own health. Because if you're not, why are they going to think that it's okay?
Yeah.
So
I added one more thing. I'll augment that even one more step. I created, and this is not a new concept, but I have office hours every Monday morning, and I set aside an hour. And you know, in the write-up, this is not a work office hours. It can be anything that you want. And so I kick off every week with an open invitation. Anyone in my organization can come. We hang out, we talk about the weekend. What did you accomplish? What movies did you watch? You know, what are your intentions for the week? And if people want to filter in, you know, work questions, fine, but it is not expected, and they can come late, they can leave early. I actually don't care. I just want to make myself available on a human level to connect with these folks. And so I use the office hours for that purpose alone.
Love it. Oh, that's wonderful. So last question before we take questions from the audience.
Yeah.
What is the most important theme CS leaders should look at in 2021?
So honestly, I think it's pretty akin to the last question. I think it's managing sanity. It's managing anxiety. We are starting to see the signs of coming out of, you know, the post-pandemic. I was chatting with you, Emilia, right before this. I have my first business trip in a week and a half. I mean, after a year plus, right? So, you know, we're starting to reemerge. And then there's all of these questions about when do we return to the office? How do we return to the office? What are the protocols to return to the office? And I think the reintroduction to, you know, some whatever work normalcy will be moving forward, by the way, that's probably different than what it once was a year ago. I think we need to have a lot of compassion. We need to have a lot of understanding, and we need to have some fluidity and adaptability to what that new looks like. That, I think, is the number one thing leaders can do. Look, a lot of us can roll with ambiguity and change pretty well. I tend to be okay with that, but there's a lot of folks that aren't. And there are a lot of folks that, as the talk track from the CEO or the talk track from leadership is, hey, we can't wait to get you back in the office in July, and we're starting to figure out how many days a week and blah, blah, blah. I mean, some of us are excited about it, but there's others that are absolutely terrified about that. And so I think it's really important, you know, for leadership to leave space for all personas, all personalities, all psyches and thoughts around that process. And we're gonna need to, it's going to be an evolving stage. How we come back to the office, quote unquote, I think is very, very different in 2021 than maybe it ever has been ever before, certainly in my lifetime. So that's the number one thing I think we need to focus on for 2021. And I guess just on the personal level, I got to do something about this quarantine 19, because I have a beach vacation coming up, and I am definitely not in fighting weight. So I got to do something about that too. That would be number two, but that's on the personal level.
Okay. I love that. I think a lot of people are with you there. This is a great question that we have, and a lot of people have upvoted it. So if you haven't logged on Slido yet, please do. And Brian, thank you for bringing this up. I think a lot of people have this feeling, and I'm actually thankful that a male brought this up. I usually get this question from women. So it is obviously gender neutral that people feel imposter syndrome. And how have you overcome or dealt with it? Chris, I know I've dealt with it, but I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah. Yeah, great question, by the way. I love it. It's so nice to get questions that aren't skimming the surface. This one like cuts right down below the surface. I love this. You know, a lot of it has to do with your level of confidence, right? If you do your homework, if you maintain your connections, if you are open and vulnerable to asking for help from your colleagues. And Emilia, I've called you countless times asking for advice. Sakamoto as well, Nick Maida as well, so many of our other colleagues. When I don't know the answer to something, I don't pretend that I know it. I actually say, I'm stuck. I need some help with this. So one thing that has helped me in my career is surrounding yourself with trusted advisors. So you've got to create an inner circle of folks that you can connect with on the human, but also the professional level where, you know, look, all of the walls and the barriers and the facade come down. Vulnerability goes a long way for that. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for the likes of you, Emilia, and so many others like you that have helped me solve just tough questions and tough problems. And if you do that enough, then when you're sort of on your own back in your business and you're working with your colleagues in your office, I think you just have much more confidence to actually expose that as well. Hey, you know, this, I'll share one right now. I had joined AuditBoard, and the retention rate formulas were different than I had really ever seen before. And, you know, I wanted them to align, and we've been struggling on, and we've made like 3 round trips with finance to like get this together, which seems an inordinate amount of time. But I started to ask a lot of colleagues and bring that information back. And, you know, again, as the CCO, they're expecting me to come in and say, this is the formula, this is what we're doing, and we're off to the races. But when we couldn't align, you know, I just said, look, I asked 4 different people. These are the answers I got. This is where I think we can go. We might want to go this way because it makes us look a little bit better, but let's just get to consistency. And that sort of open conversation, I mean, it just shatters the imposter syndrome. It really does. So I don't know what the silver bullet is here, other than do your homework, surround yourself with smart people that are kind and generous with their time and their knowledge. And then don't be afraid to, you know, say within your organization, hey, I don't know the answer to that, but I will go figure it out and I'll come back to you. That's okay.
Love that. And I wish we had time for more questions. We have 2 minutes left, so we'll have to save these for another time. But I really want to thank you for being with us, and for everyone who is with us. We have some exciting news about our next session in June. It's going to be part of the customer conference, and I have invited 2 leaders, one from MavenLink, who runs operations, because I know a lot of people are very interested in the operational aspect of customer success. And then our second guest is Georgia Ortiz. She is head of enablement and of sales and customer success enablement at Lever. So really excited to bring those 2 guests on our show, and we'll be at the customer conference next. So thanks everyone for joining us today. And Chris, thank you so much for sharing your great ideas.
Thank you for having me, Marika. Thank you so much. And have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye.